When installing a Powershare system, adding backup switch, along with Powershare gateway and universal wall connector, is an easy way to back up an entire home. This video covers the special considerations for this combination of equipment, primarily relating to the communication wiring. Please note, this equipment configuration is only used for Powershare systems that do not include Powerwall. With a standard Powershare installation, any loads located in this panel that is upstream of gateway are not backed up during a grid outage. For these loads to be backed up during a grid outage, they need to be moved to this panel, adding significant material and labor costs. Installing backup switch is a simple method to move the islanding contactor upstream of those loads, expanding the Powershare backup circuit to cover the entire home. Additionally, this combination of equipment allows for gateway and wall connector to be fed by branch circuits, eliminating the need to intercept feeders or add backup load centers. Before beginning any work, ensure that all equipment is de-energized. Follow the standard procedure to install Powershare gateway and backup switch, as detailed in the installation manual and in the other videos in this series. In a standard Powershare system, a 4-wire communication cable connects universal wall connector to these 4 points in gateway. This remains the same. When adding backup switch, an additional 4-wire communication cable is run from backup switch to gateway, where it is spliced into a factory-installed harness. Inside of gateway, pull enough of this cable into the enclosure to follow this path. Locate this factory-installed cable, connecting the taco to this connector, and unplug it at this end. Make note of where each wire is terminated on this connector. Each of these wires will be removed, spliced with the new communication wiring to backup switch, and pigtailed back to this connector. To disconnect the factory-installed wiring, use a small screwdriver as a lever to open these orange tabs, then remove each wire. Note that this connector is insulation piercing, so the ends of these wires have not been stripped. Cut off the end of each wire and strip the insulation. Terminate each wire in 4 separate Wago connectors. At the end of the new communication cable to backup switch, remove the outer jacket. Strip and terminate each wire in the second port of the matching Wago connector. If the cable has a metal shield or drain wire, cut off the excess and insulate the end of the jacket with electrical tape. If left exposed, these could later contact live electrical components, resulting in damage to the equipment. Use a new piece of communication cable to connect from the third port in each Wago back to this connector in gateway. Strip one end of each wire and terminate in the respective third port of each Wago. After all connections have been made, perform a tug test on each Wago connector. Tape each Wago connector to prevent the ports from accidentally opening. The other end of each wire is terminated on the insulation piercing connector and must not be stripped. Ensure that each port on the connector is in the open position, then fully insert the unstripped wire into the correct port. Use a small screwdriver as leverage to close the orange tab, which will pierce through the insulation of each wire. Perform a tug test on each wire to ensure that it is securely seated in the connector. Plug the connector back into this port. Manage the communication wiring around the internal panel board so that it does not interfere with breaker spaces. The other end of the new communication cable will be routed to this connector on the bottom of backup switch. Depending on local requirements, this cable can be installed in conduit or through a cable gland. Follow the same steps to terminate each of the 4 unstripped wires to their respective ports. Perform a tug test and plug the connector back into the bottom of backup switch. Install the conduit hub over the connector on the bottom of backup switch. Next, locate the neutral to ground bonding screw in Powershare gateway behind this green tag. Since gateway is not used as service entrance equipment in this configuration, the bonding screw must be removed. As the final step, locate this jumper on the taco within Powershare gateway labeled CAN term. Remove the jumper from the on position and reinstall it in the off position as shown here. Finish all other wiring in gateway and wall connector, then begin commissioning. Refer to the installation manual or watch the other videos in this series for more information about completing wiring and commissioning the system.